Hello, everyone. Welcome to another brand new episode of BW Marketing World's interview series in collaboration with Kaizen BW Marcom Power Talks, where conversations spark the next big moves. In this series, I sit down with leaders in corporate communication and marketing to explore emerging trends, evolving roles, impactful insights, as well as their strategies. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by a very special guest, Miss Usha Iyer. Hi, Usha. How have you been?
I'm very well, Rima. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here with us. Before I start, I would also like to introduce you a little. Usha has been headed corporate communication for several leading global pharmaceutical companies. Having trained as an academic historian with a PhD, Usha started her corporate career as an archivist, telling stories from the historical legacy of her company. The storytelling work substantially seamlessly blended into and became the bedrock of her corporate communication work. Her body of work, consisting of leading communication for multiple listed companies targeting a diverse stakeholder universe and towards diverse business objectives, has only reinforced one point: nothing is more powerful than authentic real life stories of people, products, and impact. Nonetheless, as our last introductory line for you, Usha, it says that all we need is authentic real life stories of people. We would definitely like to start off with one. Um, I start with my first question. When we talk about PR, when we talk about corporate communications, trust is a very crucial aspect. Now, building trust amid a rising misinformation is critical. Now, with the fake news threatening reputations and public trust, how do corporate communication leaders ensure all messaging remains vigilant, credible, accurate, and, as we all say, ethically sound?
Thanks, Rima. You've used some very big words: ethical, accurate, credible. These are extremely big words and not to be taken lightly. Um, I'll start off by saying that firstly, no one size fits all. There is no one solution to everything. You mentioned misinformation and fake news, so I'll start with that, and then go on to maybe some proactive steps. I think the first thing for us as corporate communication leaders to keep in mind is, if you're faced with an incident of misinformation, fake news, if there's any such thing going on, threat assessment. As a corporate communication leader, you are the custodian of the reputation of your company. Threat assessment becomes a very important step. Is this news that's circulating, is it about the industry or the sector as a whole, or is it just about your company? Is it a routine sort of usually happens in the course of business, kind of an operational thing, or is this something that is a bit of a one-off? It's a pretty big thing and it's happening for the first time. This is not a routine thing. Would you classify this as this too shall pass kind of a thing? Sure, it's come, it's not that big a deal. If you just stay silent, let it pass, it'll sort of, the news cycle will die down on its own. Or is this something that's threatening to become a permanent blot on your company's record and its reputation? Because let's face it, we live in the age of internet. Anything that happens is a matter of record. Tomorrow somebody could be writing about your company. When they do an internet search, these stories are going to come up. So these are the kind of assessments you need to make. And of course, is it threatening credibility? Is it going to impact any of the major parameters? Is the stock price going to be impacted by it? Are your potential partners, customers, collaborators going to be impacted by it? Are future potential employees, the talent you're looking to hire, are they going to be impacted by it? Are regulators going to be concerned by this? So all of these are things that you need to take into account. When responding to misinformation, speculation, or fake news, as you mentioned, I think the first thing to do is gather the facts. You mentioned credible and accurate. First things first, gather the facts. What has actually taken place versus what is being circulated about your company. You will probably, in all probability, be writing up a statement. Make sure that when you're writing a statement in response, it's very simple and clear. It needs to appeal to and be very clear to, let's say, the least informed person on the subject should be able to immediately understand what you're trying to say. So that simplicity and clarity are going to be very important. Extremely also important is the language. Oftentimes these misinformation pieces tend to be about maybe social misconduct or something that's happened in the public space. Be humble, be grounded, do not appear flippant, do not appear tone deaf. Occasionally you're releasing statements even before the entire episode is played out, so you don't really have a lot of information on your hands. Make sure you're coming across as very grounded at that sense. Be very sensitive to what an audience might be expecting from you as a company in such cases. I'll cite a few examples. For instance, if it's a posh case or social misconduct that one of your senior employees has been accused of, or if you were in the airlines industry, of course, there are so many incidents of passenger misconduct or passenger inconvenience we see. There was a pharma company that was in the news not very long ago for side effects of one of its vaccines, and it appeared that the whole episode had a bit more politics behind it than science. In all of these diverse cases, you need to be very sure that you're not appearing tone deaf and you're not fanning the flames more than what the episode is threatening to do. Prepare your FAQs, and of course, always remain available to the media for clarification. Extremely important, keep your diverse stakeholder universe in mind. You're at the same time, you're talking to the media, investors are interested, analysts are interested, regulators are interested, your current employees and your future employees are impacted, your current partners and collaborators and future potential ones are impacted, your current customers are impacted. So, ensure that you're working in tandem with all the teams to make sure you're reaching all of these stakeholders. Very, very underrated stakeholder set is current employees, and I want to make sure that this point is taken note of. Your current employees are as impacted by speculation, misinformation, bad news as much as the outside world. As corporate communicators and even as leaders in companies, the immediate tendency is to think about the entire external stakeholder universe. Remember, your biggest champions and advocates are your current employees who are in the company. So make sure you're being very transparent with them, and making sure that they understand the crux of the matter more than anyone else. Now, all of this, of course, comes with a rider. Also know when to admit a mistake. We know in recent months there's been, the head of a company who released certain statements about, working from home and, work-life balance and so on and so forth. There are times when companies don't need to take a step back and say, maybe we misspoke. Maybe, one should have handled this entire thing better. Now, all of this is, of course, in the face of misinformation or fake news. That is a reactive approach. Something has already happened and you're reacting to this. It's a reactive approach. Proactively, I'll just end by saying that between such crises or episodes of misinformation or fake news or so on, one also needs to constantly take proactive steps to ensure that trust and credibility are being built constantly. Because trust does not happen as a one-off overnight. Credibility does not happen as a one-off overnight. You need to keep working on that. So to that, of course, corporate communicators, we know there are certain themes or certain messages about your company you need to keep reiterating from time to time. Extremely important. Make sure that all your touch points, be it your interviews to the media, your social media posts, what's on your website, what is being said to other stakeholders, all of these speak in one voice. You're not sending out mixed signals constantly, to various stakeholders. There are no mixed messages going out. Make sure that your purpose comes out very strongly of your company. Also extremely important, education. Proactively educate the media. For instance, let's take the example of pharma. Inspections by the United States Food and Drug Administration, the USFDA, are actually routine course of business. A few years ago, any USFDA inspection would be headlines, the stock price would drop, there'd be very sort of very, very extreme reactions to it. Over a period of years now, we've seen that the media has now started to respond to USFDA inspections as just another routine development in a company's course of business. And that has been the result of years of education and interaction between the media and pharma companies to help them understand ये होते ही रहेगा. This is going to keep happening. We need to put this in the right context, the entire outcome. Similarly, make sure that you're educating your internal stakeholders, your leaders within, and keeping them resilient about crises or misinformation or fake news. The reason being, this is the age of social media. Gone are the times when somebody could say, use your relationship and kill the story. There is no such thing as kill the story anymore, because things get out before you know it. Social media has that power, the internet has the power to carry anything and everything. So you need to face up to the fact that there are things going to be said about your company. Now it's up to you as communicators to be clear, authentic, transparent, and make sure that the right message goes out, the right clarification goes out. So finally, you also need to be aware of which sector, which space you're in. Pharmaceuticals, extremely sensitive, highly regulated, and if you're a listed company, there are even more sensitivities to keep note of. So to close that, I'd say one is be authentic, and the other is be consistent, and also fall back both on proactive as well as reactive measures to fight this menace, like you said, of misinformation. And overall, trust and credibility building is a continuous process. It's not just reactive, it's also what you do between crises, what you do in peacetime.
You put down a lot of important terms, I would rather say. One, definitely when you were talking about this pharmaceutical company, crisis management is at its peak. It's required in today's state, and we are continuously seeing the need of it also. Side by side, you also mentioned that storytelling is a way of building trust and credibility. You also mentioned that we are living in an age of internet. People will say, there are people with faceless people, rather, I'd say. Internet has brought that up. But
That's right.
would you like to, you know, enhance a little more on it, give a little more insight on these things?
Absolutely, Rima. I think you've picked up on a very important point here. These days, the word storytelling is often used very glibly. I just want to be sure that I come across. I mean, I define it the way I have, what I have in mind. Storytelling is a very powerful medium. There are multiple ways of putting your point across. I can tell you that in X year, a company released this product. Or I can tell you that the company, I can put that in a different way and say the company worked with its stakeholders to realize that there was an unmet need and a gap, and it worked night and day. It went through 50 failures so that the 51st attempt was a success, and this product was produced. It meets this unmet need, serves in this manner and is an improvement on its previous things. There's a certain appeal to storytelling, and putting it in a certain context versus simply just bombarding people with data or facts. The data or the facts need to be put in a context. In another way, if I could put it, intellectual persuasion versus emotional persuasion. There's a reason why in India we love our movies. We love it when the good guy fights against all the odds and does something for the greater good. The movies appeal to a very basic instinct in us, emotional persuasion. Same goes for any company's reputation. I can tell you facts about this product was launched in this year. In the sort of example of pharmaceuticals, X product launched in X year for this particular category. Or I can tell you stories about it that there are some good examples that come to mind. In one of my past organizations, there was this example of how somebody in the R&D field saw a mother struggling at the airport to make sure her son got his inhalation device in place, and she was struggling to put a couple of things together. And this person thought, why not we as a pharma company make an integrated product so that a mother does not have to lose time at the airport trying to put the whole thing together. And that is how the integrated product came into being. We in one of my past companies also, we told the story of how the founder was sort of working with a good friend who was suffering from diabetes, and this was in the 90s. He told his friend, why don't there are tablets available, X and Y tablets available, why don't you use them? And he said, listen, this is India, it's too expensive for the common person to afford this. Immediately the founder of the pharma company set his entire R&D team to work and said, we can't have a fellow Indian suffering because some medicine which is available internationally is unaffordable to Indians in India. We need to make it at the highest quality in India and make it affordable to Indians. And that is how the birth of those products in India came to be. So these are all stories with a lot of context around them, and they tell the so like I said, I could have simply told you that this product was launched, or I could have told you this with this entire context. Which one appeals more to people? Which one makes the point of patient centricity, of innovation, of access, of affordability better? It's the stories. So hence why it's always the power of stories cannot be underestimated. Also, what are you trying to tell about yourself? The stakeholder universe you're addressing is potential collaborators, customers, even potential employees, when they look up your company's profile online, these are the things they would like to come across. You want to instill a sense of pride in a potential customer or a collaborator or an employee by revealing these aspects of your work. Purpose, it establishes a sense of purpose of the company. It establishes expertise. It establishes reliability. Also, I think stories humanize developments. Like I said, you could have said we launched this product in this year, but by putting all of these faces of the mother and child at the airport, or the friend who was suffering from diabetes, you've actually put human faces to these issues, and you've humanized the whole episode, which is, I think, extremely powerful. Also, I think stories become very important when leaders are trying to motivate their companies. All companies go through low points, all companies have ups and downs. As a leader, these are the stories you want to fall back on and remind your workforce, remind your staff that, do you remember the time we launched this? Do you remember how we all came together and we all made it happen, and it became a blockbuster product, not because of the price or the cost or so on, but because it solved a basic unmet need, a clinical need that people needed. So these are extremely powerful things. And of course, it sets you apart from competition. Again, falling back on the pharma example, because that's the one closest to my heart. The fact that a company thought so much about its stakeholders, was a listening sort of a company, was constantly looking at patients even in the everyday world and responding to their needs, makes you stand out as a company with empathy and with a heart. So I think these are extremely important. And of course, in the end, I'd like to say one thing about stories. Stories will only take you so far. You need to have the facts to back them up. Of course, they all need to be grounded in actual reality. So I'll just say this much. I mean, there are also examples of storytelling where companies, have put style above substance. Bigger budgets mean you can have bigger ad campaigns or bigger television films or something. It's very important that in storytelling we do not compromise the substance or the subject. Big budgets or showy sort of packaging or bluster will never replace actual substance in a story. Your story can be very humbly told. It can be told over a video. It can be told through a social media post or in an interview. It doesn't need to be a very showy ad campaign on multiple platforms, but as long as it's authentic, I think it will always have that power in it to be persuasive. So I think these are the reasons why stories continue to be extremely powerful.
Lovely, very, very well said, actually. Being a corpcom professional and being in this industry for so long, one thing that we have also seen it in the recent past, we have also felt it, the need of it, is crisis communication, crisis management. The
That's right.
brands, I mean, even influencers today, as we all saw what has all happened. So we call it brands, call it influencers, call it public figures, or anything of that sort. uh how do you see, like, what is the ability to anticipate and plan for potential
Hmm.
crisis in essential and companies that have been increasing investment? They also have been increasing investment in the space in a very major way. What are you doing to create a robust crisis management plan and train not only others but also your own employees to handle crisis effectively, as well as have a real time response and in a real place? How do you see all of that together?
Excellent question, and well said, Rima. I think with the internet and social media being what they are, while we're hyper connected, it also means all kinds of news travels all the time. In a sense, over the last few years, it's felt like we're just constantly battling crisis after crisis. This also means maybe not everything is a crisis. Some of them are negative situations, but probably not crisis level, but it just constantly feels like things are on the boil and we're constantly battling something or the other, because we are that hyper connected and that hungry for news all the time. And unfortunately, bad news always travels, speculation always travels faster than any of the good things. So extremely important point. I just like to draw a difference between a few things. There are some issues that can be anticipated from a long way away. For instance, we know that the US administration has been talking about tariffs on various sectors and on various countries. There are geopolitical conflicts and wars going on in certain parts of the world. There is a certain build up to all of this. There are certain policy announcements. So as corporate communication leaders or even CXOs of companies, they can all sort of anticipate this, and so that gives you a bit more time to prepare for such crises. To get your teams together, to create a war room, and what happens, do your scenario mapping, and so on. There are some situations which are recurring in nature. From a pharma perspective, I mentioned regulatory inspections. There are product recalls, for instance. These are some examples of, I would, they're not always crises, but these are potentially negative situations that are recurring in the course of business. So these are also things that you can be prepared for. Then there are some that are sudden and they creep up on you. For instance, speculation around a merger or an acquisition, or some news leak about an internal development that just goes out, finds its way out, and then suddenly springs up on you. So there are different levels of negative situations that as a corporate communicator you need to prepare for. And on adding to that, of course, if you're in a sector like pharmaceuticals, which is extremely sensitive, like I said, it's a life-saving sector. It's a highly regulated sector. The spotlight is intense and constant. And on top of that, if you're a listed company, your obligations only get bigger and bigger. So you have to be mindful about all of these things. As a corporate communicator these days, you're wearing all these hats, and all of them need to remain on your head at the same time. So first things first, a crisis situation or a situation of emergency needs a very clear chain of command. So one of the things that companies do, many companies do, I'm sure most of the corporate communication profession would be aware of this, a clear chain of command as to who takes charge of what aspect, who goes to whom for what kinds of approvals, what kinds of clarity, what is the statement we want to give out. Because not only is the chain of command important for clarity and approval, but also to ensure that everyone speaks in one voice. There aren't mixed messages and mixed signals going out during a crisis or an emergency situation. Also very important from a corporate communication standpoint is for this particular function to be very well networked within the company. Crisis these days can be, like I said, range from a product recall to a regulatory inspection to geopolitical issues. Any part of the company and any team can come and report to you and say, hi, I have heard that such and such thing is coming up, so please be on the lookout, this and this could come up. Or so as the corporate communication person, can you pick up the phone to any of the teams and ask them for facts, ask them for clarity? Are you networked enough that any of the teams, if they anticipate something on the horizon, they pick up the phone and call you? Because the earlier you get to know about something, the longer you have to prepare for it, and the longer sort of lead you have to prepare the CXOs, prepare everyone else for such a thing. So I think it's a bit of an underrated thing, but it's extremely important. Corporate communication needs to network very well within the company. I'll also say that one caution I'd like to give everybody is take an extra minute. Take an extra minute if need be. I just feel that there's a lot of hurry all the time during crisis situations. To is the statement ready? Has this person approved? Has this person seen it? When are we giving it out? To whom? Have we sent it to the stock exchanges? Have we sent it to the media? Have we put it on social media? There are a lot of things to do, but I think a wiser approach would be take an extra minute, take a pause, but just make sure you're factual, you're credible, and you're authentic. Because if these criteria are not met, I think you've just set yourself up to fail in a crisis situation. So I just go back to my previous word, just be credible, factual, authentic.
That's actually very authentic. That's very credible, very authentic, I must say. Coming on to my next question, actually, Usha, when we talk about COPCOM, we also are now talking about the, compliance issues, their role in the regulations. Now, with growing regulatory scrutiny and demand for transparency, how is corporate communication navigating compliance across advertising, data protection, industry norms? What best practices do you think can help a company address these evolving challenges?
Excellent question again. Regulatory compliance is a massive issue, and especially in a sector like pharmaceuticals.
Right.
This is a life-saving industry. You have prescription drugs. You're not allowed to advertise your products, your prescription products. There are very stringent regulations governing what you can and cannot say about products and about your services and about various parts of your functioning of your operations. So, step one, I think it's very important as a corporate communication leader to understand the space you play in, the sector you're situated in, understand how regulations work, understand how being a listed entity on top of being a regulated sector works. Also, very important, understand which regulations are mandatory and which ones are not. So the Securities and Exchange Board of India also has regulations in place for disclosures by companies. It has a set of mandatory disclosures, and then it leaves certain things to the discretion of companies in various sectors. You need to determine what's important and you need to voluntarily disclose it. So, as a corporate communication person, if you don't understand the landscape you play in, the sector, and your own company's objectives, I don't think you'll be very, it won't be an easy task to determine what to say, how much to say, when to say, and so on. So, first things first, non negotiable, understand your sector and understand the regulations. Extremely important. The other thing is to understand why these regulations have been put in place. I think it's very easy to see regulations as the enemy, but let's look at it from the other point of view. Regulations are in place for a reason. They are there to protect consumers, to protect patients, to protect various other stakeholder groups. And we play in the same universe. I mean, we need to be respectful of them. Your stakeholders, the more transparency you give them, the more confidence your stakeholders will have in you, including consumers, patients, and so on. Also, the more transparency you give to the outside world, the less information asymmetry there'll be, because otherwise there is a threat of some people knowing a lot, some people not so much. So these regulations are in place to ensure that there's symmetrical information available to everyone outside. And of course, you can't say the words that you're a transparent company or you have high integrity and not live those words. So there's a reason why all of these measures are in place, and let's be respectful of that. Once that's done, also understand what the regulations are asking for, not just in letter, that is the written word of the law, but also in spirit. Why was this intended? So make sure you're complying with both the letter and the spirit of the regulation. I think from there, from a more sort of a operational perspective, a cross-functional group is always important. You need to work, corporate communication needs to work with the legal team, with the secretarial team, with the industrial relations, investor relations, the businesses, the CXOs, and so on. It's necessarily a cross-functional team that needs to work on these disclosures, the external communication, the regulatory compliances, and so on. It's a shared burden between all of these teams. So extremely important. Very again important to keep guidelines for yourself and your company ready in advance, so that every time a development happens, you have a ready reckoner in front of you, and you're following a signed off document. It's not ad hoc. You're not just thinking every time something happens, you're thinking on your feet in delivery. It's a well thought through and signed off document. Extremely again, finally important is, just like we said earlier, don't wait. I mean, it's also what you do between these episodes or between these disclosures or between these crises. Constantly keep up your monitoring of the print media, the online media, social media, and so on, because your disclosures, your communication between these episodes is also extremely important. And the more you monitor and listen, the more you're able to see whether you're disclosing enough, you're transparent enough, you're being seen as credible, and so on and so forth. So I think these are some of the things that I want to highlight on this topic.
Very wonderfully explained, Usha. So my next question for you is that, we are talking to a CopCom professional. How can we not talk about online reputation management, isn't it? So what would you say, like, what are the key pillars of a strong and holistic online reputation management? What is next for it? What strategy are we looking into it? One that not only mitigates risks, but also builds long-term brand credibility through strategic communication. What do you think are those pillars in today's date?
Excellent question. The word online and online reputation management, extremely important. You and I are also currently talking online. 10, 15 years ago, you and I would have sat face to face, maybe across the table, and not done a Zoom or a Teams
We would have waited
call.
for months then.
Absolutely. And I mean, we would have waited for months and we would have done it in person because there was a certain way of doing things. It's all moved online. It's faster, quicker, more convenient. But then so are the crises, so are the credibility issues, so are the reputational issues. It's all online. It's all happening online and it's traveling faster than we think. So the online word is extremely important here. As a corporate communication leader, understand why you're doing online reputation management. First things first, again, I'd give you a pharma example: statutory requirements. Pharmacovigilance is an extremely important core part of communication and the functioning of pharmaceuticals. Often there are product complaints or reports. There are consumers or patients talking about your products online. As a company, you need to proactively listen to what people are saying about your products, and then make sure that they're reported and they're looked at. The law requires you to do that, and here corporate communication has a very important role to play in pharmacovigilance. Again, which is why it makes online reputation management, social listening so important. So these are some of the sort of statutory requirements. Beyond that, as a corporate communication person in this day and age, with the kind of tools that are available to you, do you not want to know what kind of chatter is taking place about your organization? What is the sentiment about your organization online? Are you being responsive? There are people from current and potential employees to other stakeholder groups, maybe even consumers, maybe even patients writing to you. Be a responsive company that constantly sort of replies to comments, replies to questions, closes the loop in all of these cases, is seen as responsive. Also extremely important for you to stay relevant. If you're not tuning into these things online, you're not staying relevant as a company. And of course, finally, like you mentioned the word crisis as well, anticipating crisis from a long way off. I think for these reasons, online social listening is extremely important for all of these reasons. And the more responsive you are, the more you're seen as a company that's very agile online. It's both anticipating, responding, as well as doing its statutory responsibilities really well. The more assurance you're giving your end customers, regulators, future talent, that this is a company I want to partner with, this is a company I want to work for, because it's highly credible. I have a lot of confidence in how they're working. So for these reasons, I think it's extremely important. If you're using a tool or a partner for social listening and online reputation management, of course make sure they understand why this is being done. Make sure you're going about it the right way. Use them as your right hand. Brief them well how to handle a crisis, how to handle the day to day, and so on. The hygiene bits I won't go into detail, but this bit will be extremely important. I'll close by saying one thing: online reputation management needs to be proactive as well as reactive. But I'll say one more thing for ORM: every single thing that we've discussed so far, from crisis to disclosures to stories, everything is online. Everything is hence going to require online reputation management, and every company is going to need ORM to stay competitive.
Lovely. That has been an extremely insightful conversation with you, Usha. It was absolutely pleasure having you with us. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you
Thank you
had
for
a
having
lovely
me.
experience.
Absolutely, yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, and thank you all of you for watching us. And we hope to see you next week again. Till then, see ya, bye bye, have a good night, and thank you again, Usha, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.